and welcome back to iFam Extras. I am currently just sat waiting for Chris to finish editing our daily vlog to go up on our main channel, the Ingham Family, and whilst I was waiting I thought I would turn on the camera and do a random chit-chatty vlog to you guys, because actually I've not done a sit-down chat with you guys for ages, and there's a few questions that keep being answered over and over again, and I thought I'll just do one vlog. Instead of replying to comments, I'll just do one vlog and answer those questions. So the questions are surrounding the girls, Isabel, Esme and Isla. When are their birthdays? What are their middle names? What would you have called them if they were boys? And just all sorts of fun things surrounding like pregnancy and their births and things like that. So I thought I would do a really nice little light-hearted chitty chat. Let me just open the blind. Informative vlog with you guys this morning. So I'm going to start with Isabel. She was born on the 2nd of September 2005. Her labour was, let me think, 12 hours long. 12 hours. I went into labour on Thursday the 1st of September. She was actually due on the 26th of August. She was exactly 1 week late, a whole 7 days. I went into labour with her on on the 1st of September, which was a Thursday. I remember watching Bad Lads Army, which was a programme I used to watch back in the day, and my waters basically went straight away. They didn't gush with any of my girls. There was no big gush. It was just kind of like tiny little leak every time I had a contraction, which I don't know if that's better or worse. Obviously I've not had experience of the other one, but it's kind of gross. Like, you feel like you're weeing. It actually feels like you're weeing your pants. It's disgusting. So I went straight into hospital with her because my waters had broken. They kept me in overnight, and I pretty much laboured all through the night with her. I had an epidural, felt like I was actually dying. Bearing in mind I was 19 at the time, and yeah, it was pretty scary. I was excited in the run up to the labour, but when the time came for it, that just went out the window and I was terrified. I got an epidural after trying, is it pethidine and gas and air, and they didn't work for me at all. So I had an epidural with Isabel, and she was born at 10:36 on Friday the 2nd of September. She had so much brown hair. I was completely convinced that Isabel was a boy. 100% convinced. I even bought like a couple of more boyish outfits. I don't know why, I was completely convinced though. We didn't find out the sex of any of our girls. They were all surprises. And I can just remember them saying, "Congratulations, you've got a little girl," and me being like, "Check again, it's not a girl, check, double check," and then going, "Pass it to me, let me see." It was so random, but I was so happy that she was a girl, and she was just perfect. I did also have with Isabel forceps, which is kind of like a big clamp that goes around the baby's head. Oh yeah, they're like this. It goes up in there, around the baby's head, and pulls the baby out. So she had a tiny red mark. Like I said, I was 19, I was just so scared, wanted her out, I couldn't do it, and so the forceps were there to help get her out, and as soon as they only needed one attempt at it and she came out. Isabel weighed 7'3", and she was just the cutest, tiniest, perfect bundle of joy. Her middle name is Sophia, S-O-F-I-A, and her name Isabel was a name that we came up with, that name because it was a name that I always wanted if I ever had a child. When I was a little girl, I always said if I ever have a daughter, her name will be Isabel, and so that's kind of why we chose that name. It was basically me. I said throughout my whole childhood I want that name, and so as soon as I found out in the delivery room I'd had a girl, straight away it was Isabel, and it's just, I love it. If Isabel was a boy, like I was convinced she was a boy, she would have been called Brooklyn Ellis, and I can't remember where or why we chose that name. I actually think, was it around the time that Victoria Beckham had her baby called Brooklyn. I'm pretty sure it was. And we heard it and I just thought that's a really nice name. And now I've completely gone off that name, so I'm so glad that she was a girl. But I guess if Isabel had been a boy and I'd called that name, I wouldn't have gone off the name. But anyway, that's what Isabel would have been called if she was a boy, and that's pretty much her birth story. Moving on to Esme. Oh, Esme's labour, I was terrified, literally terrified. I said throughout my whole pregnancy, I'm having an epidural. As soon as I get to hospital, that epidural's going straight in. And I don't know, I was just really nervous for her delivery. Again, we didn't find out the sex of Esme's whilst I was pregnant. It was a surprise. I forgot to mention this with Isabel too, I suffered horrendous morning sickness with all of my girls, and it did get worse with each one. Isla's, it was terrible. I was actually hospitalised with Isla. With Isabel, it was really difficult because I was working a full-time job at a prison, and although I was more admin side, it was still really difficult, constantly having to get up from my desk to go be sick throughout the whole day. And with all pregnancies, the morning sickness was not just a 12-week thing. It was 5 weeks to 35 weeks. It was really bad. With Esme, obviously it's much harder being pregnant when you've got another child, because it's not just about going to sleep if you need to. I had Isabel to take care of. Isabel was 2? No, Isabel was 3 when I had Esme. So she was 3, almost 4. And so she was in school and things like that, in nursery. And with Esme's pregnancy, the sickness was really bad, but it was more just feeling sick rather than being sick. I was sick quite a few times, but I remember I was sick less but felt sick more. There's so many remedies that people advise you to try, ginger nut biscuits and all sorts, and crackers, and honestly, if you get morning sickness like I did, nothing works. Nothing at all. I even went to the doctors, more so with Isla's pregnancy, to get tablets, and they were horrendous too. They completely knocked me out, which is not what you need when you have a partner who works full-time and you're at home full-time looking after the children. Anyway, moving on. Me and Chris used to watch a programme on MTV. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like a teen programme or a tween programme. Me and Chris loved it anyway. And there was a girl on this programme called Esme, and Chris fell in love with the name Esme. He just loved it, and I really liked it too. Although I really liked Alexa, and so it was kind of one of those two names we were going to call her. In the end, we thought that Esme Alexa just sounded nicer than Alexa Esme. So that's how she came up with that name. We had quite a lot of negative responses whilst I was pregnant to that name. A lot of people saying, you cannot call your child Esme. What on earth are you thinking? That's a horrid name. And that was not very nice at the time, but we didn't care. It was our child, and we were going to choose the name. And since then, we've only had positive like reactions when we say her name's Esme. That's such a pretty name. It's not a very common name, which is what we really like. And so yeah, that's how we came up with the name Esme. If Esme had been a boy, again, I was convinced, in fact with all 3 of my pregnancies I thought I was having a boy, she would have been called Dylan, I think. I'm sure me and Chris had such a hard time choosing boys' names, and Dylan was the only name that we both was kind of like, yeah, I guess that's okay. That'd be okay. There was no name with Esme, no boy name, that me and Chris was both like, I really like that. So I'm so glad that she turned out to be a girl. Chris was working in a hospital in an A&E department when I went into labour with Esme. I went into labour around midnight on the 19th, and she was born at 8, I always get this wrong, 8:18. So 8 PM 2018 on the 20th of June. I really was nervous for Esme's labour. I really was, and I think it completely traumatised Chris, Esme's labour. I had gas and air, and it sent me completely doolally. I was terrified. There was no one to come and give me an epidural, and I just don't cope with labour and pain very well. But she was born, happy and healthy at 2018, and she weighed £6.15, and she came out with a huge lock of bright orange hair, which was amazing. Obviously I'd only ever had Isabel prior to this, who had such dark hair and a dark complexion, and so it was such a big contrast. But yeah, that's Esme's. Is there anything else I need to add to that? I did have the epidural with Esme right at the last minute, but yeah, her labour was, after that, after having the epidural, was pretty smooth. I did tear with all three girls quite badly, but I don't know if that's probably a bit too much information. And then finally onto Isla. Isla's pregnancy was really, really hard on me. It was difficult. I started with morning sickness at 5 weeks. I think it was 5 weeks, and it actually never left. I can remember feeling at 40 weeks I still feel sick, but it was really bad between 5 weeks and 30 weeks, and in between that period I literally felt like death. Like, I felt so bad. I can't even explain how it was. You see all these women that are glowing and loving pregnancy and out shopping for their new baby. That was not me at all. I don't think I even barely left the house for her pregnancy. I just felt so bad all the time. I was constantly throwing up. I remember the only time I left was to take Isabel to school. Obviously I was pregnant. It's such a hilly area where we live, and I remember having to walk up a massive hill to get back home, bearing in mind I had Esme, who was only 2 at the time, and I suffered really bad with passing out. If I was out on my own, it terrified me, which is why I didn't go out much when I was pregnant with Isla. That I couldn't avoid taking Isabel to school. I had to get her to school, and we couldn't always afford taxis, so I'd walk to school with Isabel, and it's about a 10-minute walk. It would take me about 2 hours because I had to stop every couple of steps, sit down on the floor, put my head in between my legs to try and stop myself from passing out, as well as holding Esme's hand, because I was scared that something bad would happen. I did, whilst being on my own with Esme, once, or maybe twice, but definitely once, completely pass out at the side of a busy road, and it was only a few seconds, but I remember coming, as soon as I laid down basically on the floor, as soon as I fell down, I'd come round, but I remember coming round thinking, oh my gosh, Esme, where's Esme, where's Esme? And luckily she stayed at the side of me, but I just remember thinking, what if she'd have walked off, or what if she'd have gone onto the road, or what if, I don't know. It was scary, so I barely left the house with Isla's pregnancy because I was too worried about what would happen if I was to pass out without any help there. Me and Chris really, really liked the name Isla right from the start of my pregnancy. There was never any other name in competition with that name. We both decided, is the camera moved? We both decided that we loved that name, and if we was to have a girl, she'd be called Isla. We've always found girls' names so easy, and yeah, we loved the name Isla. I loved the name Savannah, and we did debate a little bit, same as Esme, should we call her Savannah, should we call her Isla, and we decided that Isla Savannah just ran better. Again, with boys, we could not agree. We couldn't find a name we both loved. Chris really liked the name Austin, but spell O-S-T-Y-N, Austin, and I really liked the name Noah. And even when I went into the delivery room, we'd not fully agreed. I had done a really cute surprise and ordered a baby boy's vest, and on the front of it it said, my daddy won, or my daddy won, or my daddy got his way, my name's, and then on the back it said Austin in the way Chris wanted it spelled. And I was, even though I'd bought that, I was still debating it. Shall I give him it or not if it's a boy? Or shall I just say, no, I've just gone through labour, I want him to be called Noah. I couldn't decide, but I did buy that for Chris, and I probably, to be honest, I think if we'd have had a boy with Isla, she would have been called Austin. I do quite like that name still. I do think it's still quite a nice name, but I'm glad we got, obviously, our Isla Savannah. Isla's labour. So it was Easter Sunday, April 8th, 2012, me and Chris and the girls had gone for an Easter treasure hunt in the woods just near us. We do that every Easter. And I forgot to say, Esme was a week overdue too. She was a week overdue. She was due on the 13th of June and she came on the 20th. Exactly the same as Isabel. With Isla, we were walking in the woods. It was the Easter Sunday and I can remember thinking, I've not felt the baby move for a while. And I said to Chris, I've not felt her move for a while. I was 4 days overdue. So Chris said, let's go home, get some cans of like ice cold Coke, drink some, eat some ice cubes, which is what I'd craved for the whole pregnancy, and just lay down on the bed, because sometimes when you're out and about walking around, kicks and things can go missed. So I came home, laid on the bed, we gave it about half an hour, and I still said, I want to go get checked over. I haven't felt a move. It's not natural. It's not moving at all. She was such an active baby, and I just remember feeling really uneasy about it. So we went into the hospital, they checked me over, the baby was fine, but because I was 4 days overdue anyway and the ward was quite quiet, they said to me, we're going to induce you. I was like, oh my goodness, I was so scared of being induced, because I've heard that induction labours are way more painful than natural labours. So my initial thought was, oh gosh, I'm not ready, I don't want to be induced. However, they said after doing another heart trace that her heart rate was dipping slightly and it would be safer to induce me. She examined me, did the midwife, and actually said, you're not favourable, your cervix is way back and way closed, and we're going to give you a pessary, and we will probably have to give you another one in the morning, because I doubt this one will work just because you're not favourable at all. I remember she popped the pessary in, which killed at about 5 to midnight. Chris had gone home. I'd updated him and told him nothing was going to happen until morning, so he needed not worry. And she walked away after putting in this pessary, and I just felt the most uncomfortable, I can't describe how it felt, but it actually quite hurt. But it was like a pop, and I was like, and it felt like, I don't know, it just felt so weird. And I was just like, it actually felt like the baby's leg had fallen out of me or something. It was so weird. I stood up, and a tiny trickle of water fell down my leg, and I was like, what the hell, have I just weed myself, or is that actually my waters? And then I just got such an intense contraction that I laid over the bed, and I was like, oh my goodness. My heart was racing because I'd just been told nothing was going to happen till morning. I went and found the midwife and said, my water just broke, I'm having contractions, I'm in labour. And she laughed at me. She actually said, I've just examined you, you're not in labour. Go and try and get some sleep because it's midnight and tomorrow is probably going to be a busy day for you. And I said, no, my waters have just broke, I'm getting contractions, I'm in labour, please come and examine me. And she kind of huffed and puffed like I was being an absolute pain. She gave me a sanitary towel and said, you're probably just weeing yourself, go and put that on and bring it back to me in 10 minutes. So I took my sanitary towel, went back to my bed, like waited for a little bit more to leak out, which took like a minute. I took it back to her and it was green. Like, I know this is probably TMI, but that's just the way it goes. It was green, and she literally panicked. And basically what it means if it's green is that the baby could be in distress and they have done their first, I can't remember the name of it. They've done their first, basically they've pooed inside you. So it could mean that they're in distress, which really upset me because I had my heart set on a water birth, and that now meant that because she'd done that and could be in distress, I had to be strapped to a bed and have the standard scary delivery that I really didn't want. Obviously the baby was more important though. Isla's labour, it was so quick. This was all at midnight. By the time she'd examined me and checked my pad and things, it was about midnight. midnight. I called Chris. She said, let's get you around to the labour ward. I couldn't walk. I was literally hugging a radiator, crying, going, I can't stand up, please help me, make the pain go away. I got onto the labour ward about 1 AM and I was crying, get me an epidural now, I need an epidural. I couldn't, literally, they gave me gas and air, which sent me loopy, completely loopy. I thought that the woman in the midwife who was trying to put a cannula, I thought she was using an axe. I don't know why, but she couldn't get the cannula in, and I don't know if she was a trainee, but she couldn't do it, and there was blood squirting everywhere, and I was convinced she was hacking my hand off. And I can remember crying, just laying there crying, thinking she's hacking my hand off, going, I'm not going to have a hand, what's she doing? I had a robot voice inside my head saying, if you can hear this voice, that means you're dying. Not joking, I was off of my head on this gas and air. It just was insane. They attached me up to a monitor. I don't know if my body was going into shock or something, but they attached me up to a monitor and my heart rate was going faster than what it should have been. The baby's heart rate was going slower than what it should have been, so there was a bit of a panic. Chris had not arrived back with me at this point, so it was all quite scary. Chris arrived back at around 1:30 and he was like, get someone here now to give her an epidural. The midwife was saying, this girl needs an epidural, because my heart rate was, I just don't think I was coping very well with the pain, and the fact that the gas and air was sending me so loopy, it was just not helping at all. In the end, I got to 10 centimetres and I said, I'm not pushing this baby out until I've got an epidural in. So someone came and gave me an epidural. Anaesthetist. They came and they gave me the epidural and it didn't work. It didn't work at all, and I kept saying to the midwife, the pain's not going, the pain's not going, why is the pain not going? And she keeps saying, it will, give it time. But it didn't, and it turns out the epidural tube had actually fallen out of my back. It had come out, that's why it was not working. It had disconnected somewhere, I don't know how, but Chris said, is this meant to be attached to something? And the midwives were like, what the hell? Anyway, it was too late to try again. Isla was coming, she was born at 2:52 AM, so from midnight to 2:52, all this had happened. I know I'm just saying all this now into like 3 minutes, but it was so fast and so scary. She was 4 days late and she weighed £6.15, just exactly the same as her sister Esme. She had pretty much no hair, but what hair she did have, we could see it was blonde. And yeah, so that's Isla's delivery. I've already said what her name was going to be. I've already said her weight, the time she was born. There was no real meaning behind any of our girls' names other than we just really liked them. With pregnancy cravings, with Isabel, I craved lettuce. Like, I'm not even joking. I put like 3 stone on throughout all of my pregnancies, and I don't know how, because I literally lived off lettuce when I was pregnant with Isabel. It had to be the ready-made bags with the red cabbage in too. Oh my gosh, I had one. I must have eaten 4 bags a day. At least 1 for breakfast, 1 for lunch, 1 with my dinner, and 1 as a snack throughout the day. I loved lettuce. With Esme, I craved slush puppies, like ice cream van slush puppies. There's no slush puppy machines around where we live, and I can remember sending Chris, it was like an hour round trip to the ice cream van, which is in Roundy Park, to get slush puppies for me, and I just loved them. And also with Esme, this is so random, but I craved foisty smells. All my family and friends used to laugh at me so much because I bought like loads of flannels, and what I used to do was put them under the tap, wet them, and then fold them up really small and tight, and then leave them for a couple of hours. They'd be like lined up on the side of our bath, and then after a couple of hours, just before they got dry, I'd open them bit by bit and just sit there smelling these flannels that smell of wet foist. It's so random, but please comment down below if you had any weird pregnancy like cravings like that, because honestly, I craved it so bad. And then Isla's craving was ice. I'd go to Sainsbury's and I'd buy huge bags of ice, or I'd put ice in our little ice trays in one of our little ice maker things, and I'd just sit there and crunch ice all day long. It was amazing. So good. So that's a really quick rundown of my 3 girls' labours. They were all different, all 3 pregnancies. They were different, but I guess kind of not. I suffered with sickness with them all. I did pass out actually with Isabel in Tesco's when I was with my sister, and I did pass out a couple of times when I was pregnant with Esme too. I remember one time was in Argos at Christmas, and we were out shopping, just me and Chris, and some stranger got my phone and typed in Chris's number and called him and said, I think your girlfriend's like passed out on the floor. And I'd actually passed out in Argos. but Isla's was the worst. Isla's was by far the worst. It was a weekly or multiple times a week occurrence, and it was horrendous. Anyway, hope you enjoyed watching this video and it's given you a little bit more information on my pregnancies and the girls. If you have any other questions, comment down below and let me know. If you have any awesome birth stories or weird pregnancy cravings, also comment down below, because I love listening to people's birth stories and things like that. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Give it a big thumbs up if you did, and I will see you guys real soon. Bye!